Well, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Final Boy Status. For this episode, I will be your host. I'm Lanson Lappin. I am joined by two esteemed and extremely funny gentlemen. We have Adam Bone.
Hi, everyone. My name's Adam Bone.
That it is. And Luke Haueter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Bone. Fuck. Oh, God.
Try it again. It's okay.
Shit.
You had that whole intro to think about it, Luke. What
Just look at
happened?
the teleprompter.
No, it's okay. I'm Lanson. No, God.
Yeah, that works too.
It's okay. For the YouTube viewers, I actually have a lower third. Hello, everyone. My name is Luke Haueter. I'm happy to be here. Grateful to Lanson and Adam for having me back.
Of course.
Guys, he's the producer's son. I can't, there's not a whole, our hands are kind of tied here.
He's my son? What?
Yeah.
It's the rough thing. I'm a nepotism baby through and through. That's why I got these fancy digs.
Yes.
Yeah, my man.
Yes.
That's why I have a dedicated studio that definitely doesn't have my bed clearly in the background and not made in the slightest.
That's just one of those Zoom backgrounds that you can choose. It's an option of the unmade bed. Oh,
Have you seen that guy online that does like extreme sports with a green screen, and then it shows like
no.
him like in like some meeting on Zoom, but he's like in reality motorbiking. My favorite is there's one where he's full boxing a guy, but you look at the Zoom meeting and it's just like a sloppy green screen like office background as he's just getting his shit rocked by a professional boxer.
Good times. Speaking of good times, we have a lot of fun doing this podcast. Now, if you're new to the podcast, or maybe it's been a while since you've tuned in, over here at Final Boy Status, we are three average Joes that talk about survival and horror movies. Very similar to what you guys do at home with your friends or with your family. You watch a movie, you say, man, I would have done that differently, or that was a good choice. So we kind of do the same thing, just talk about movies in general, and then just talk about how we would survive them. So without further ado, let's talk about this week's special movie, which was picked by our own Adam Bone, which is The Empty Man. So Adam, why don't you go ahead, maybe give a little bit of a synopsis on the movie and some reasons why you wanted to pick it for this episode.
Awesome. So I'll start with the synopsis and then kind of going into my reason. Synopsis, a little difficult, but let me try and do my best. There's a couple hikers up in Nepal, Tibet, somewhere around there. Bhutan. They run into this creepy looking statue thing, some weird whispering, supernatural stuff happens. They get trapped in a cabin, and most of them end up dead. And then it cuts to our main character, whose name on the top of my head is James Lazambra, and he is an ex-cop. He's had some tragic backstory. A friend of his either runs away or gets kidnapped. They disappear, and he's on the case as a citizen doing a good thing for a family friend, and craziness ensues. So this is kind of a disclaimer. If you haven't seen The Empty Man, we will be jumping into spoilers. If that's from that synopsis, it sounds interesting, go watch it, come back. The subtitle on my name is going to make a little bit more sense after you watch it, so do it for that, and then come back because we are going to break it down pretty specifically with some spoilers. Now, I watched this movie a year or two ago. I don't totally remember if it was right when it came out or pretty soon after, but I remember me and Luke were talking about this before we started, but Chris Stuckman is a YouTuber guy I watch who does movies, and he reviewed it. And he was like, it's really good. More people need to see it because basically nobody saw it when it came out. And so I watched it with some friends and my brother. And I think more than any other movie I've watched with that group, and we watch a lot of movies together, this was the one where afterwards we talked and came up with theories and came up with reasons. And we had to look up stuff, and we wanted to look up like the lore and the backstory. There's just so much to unpack with this movie. And it's so polarizing. I think half of us were like, that movie wasn't good. And then the other half was like, no, I liked it. It was really good. So that's I I wanted to bring it to you guys just to hear your thoughts. I think it's a very interesting movie. I'm very excited to see how we make it work for this podcast because it's very different story-wise than other movies. It's not very clear exactly how we're going to break it down. So I'd love to see us kind of give some ideas of what's going on, break down the story before we actually, because I think that's important before we actually decide if we can survive it, is to come into a conclusion on what is even happening in the movie in the first place. So, yeah, I'm excited for this discussion.
Very nice. Well, let's kind of segue into just talking about our general thoughts about the movie. So you know what? Since you just got done talking, Adam, would you mind just kind of giving us your general thoughts? What you liked, what you didn't like, and yeah, just go from there.
Absolutely. I think my initial thoughts, because I did watch it twice. I watched it a year or two ago, and then I watched it yesterday. The first time, I was like, I did not like that movie. It didn't make any sense to me. There's all these red herrings everywhere, and most of it didn't matter by the end of the movie. I watched it a second time, and I think I appreciate it. I still have gripes, but I think overall, I'll just start with the positive. It is very unique. I think it has a lot of atmosphere. It has a lot of intrigue. I think throughout the movie, I was very interested. Where is it going with this? There are a few different themes, some mystery. You're kind of curious what's going on in the background of these characters, the stories. There's some cool, creepy cult elements, which I love in movies. I love cults and stuff like that. So that was fun. The first 20 minutes of this movie were probably the scariest part of the movie. I thought it was an awesome beginning, really sets the tone of the movie, makes you really excited to see where it goes. So yeah, I think it's just a super solid movie, makes you think, it intrigues you. And there's a lot of great horror moments, I think is the last thing I'll compliment it, where it has scenes that start and end, and it feels like a very condensed, or not condensed, what's the word? Very I can't think of the word, but where it has a very good beginning and end. That scene kind of is kind of like a vignette where it's kind of contained is the word I'm looking for. Where it's very scary and there's a lot of good suspense throughout the scene, and a lot of these scenes sometimes don't even really connect to the rest of the movie, which is one of my gripes, but I can tell the director is really good at building suspense, building scares, making him. I mean, there's a few jump scares here and there, but they weren't annoying to me. I thought when they happened, they worked enough, and it was a pretty scary movie. As far as gripes, I think the end of this movie kind of ruins the rest of the movie. Like, it was an end that's kind of like a Shyamalan twist ending. And it makes you go, oh, that's an interesting ending. And then you start thinking about it and you're like, this ending doesn't make a whole lot of sense to the rest of the movie. And I think if you, like, again, this is one of the things me and my friends broke down. If you really break it down, you can justify certain things, but I don't think the movie really earns the ending that it has, because then there's scenes you think about and you're like, well, if this is true, why is this happening? There's also a lot of catharsis at the end of the movie about what happens to the main character's family, some of the grief that he's experienced with it, and it turns out not to matter at all. And again, spoiler warning, turns out to not even have existed or happened at all. And you learn this before you see this scene with what actually happened to them. So you're sitting there going, okay, why do I care about this now that I know this didn't even actually happen? So I think the ending was a little disappointing. It kind of ruined the rest of the movie because a lot of it didn't even happen. A lot of it didn't even matter. I will say overall, it's a positive experience. You should watch it because I think the in the moment watching the movie was worth it. Even the second time, I found myself intrigued and interested, but the ending really just doesn't hit the mark for me. So that's my thoughts.
Very nice. And Luke, let's kick it over to you. What did you think about the movie? Just yes.
He's nodding his head for the podcast listeners out there.
Let's start my section with a visual joke to alienate most of our audience.
Great. That's what I did too.
Where
Is
to
that
begin?
the empty man?
I am empty, emotionally, physically, so hungry, which is
Dude.
crazy because I just ate 50 chicken pot pies.
It's a
The
lot.
little personal ones. It was the person. Calm down.
Hey man, no judgment here. Food
I
is
have a
food.
little bit of judgment.
Okay,
But,
if there's no judgment, I was lying. They were the full family size chicken pot
Dude,
pies.
throw it down, my dude. Eat that.
I gotta maintain this dumb truck of a butt,
Dummy thick.
dummy thick, laying it down. I'm so thick I could press vinyl with my buns. God, I don't even know where to begin with this movie.
Mhm.
This is a hard movie to really pass any kind of judgment on because it's very ambiguous, it's very open-ended. And like Adam said, this is a great movie to just kind of like, make your friends watch and be like, what do you think?
Yeah.
If I'm going to weigh in, the thing that really won me over about this movie is how the beginning of it feels like you kind of go into it and you're like, oh, great, this kind of movie again. Like,
Mhm.
There's an urban legend. If you blow on a bottle in the middle of the night, the empty man will come and kill you. And a bunch of teenagers do it, and then they start going missing, and a detective has to track them down. So it's just that thing of like, there's a million like really bad horror movies, and this is like right in that vein. The beginning totally like, I remember like I also had seen parts of Chris Stuckman's video. I didn't watch the full thing, but I saw that he really liked it, and I was like, oh, interesting. And then I watched the beginning, and I was like, he liked this. This is so like stereotypical. You've seen this movie a million times. They did it a few years ago with like Slender Man, and then there's like we all know the movies I'm talking about, like
Yep.
idiot teenagers getting killed, and there's like not a lot going on, and it's not very interesting. And then this movie just like totally pulls the rug out from under you and is like, that storyline of the movie doesn't matter. Surprise. Like, and so it just like hardcore goes in this other direction. And, one thing we talk about a lot is we really love if we can walk away from a movie and go, I've never seen anything like that before. What's interesting about this movie is the entire setup of the movie. I'm like, oh, I've seen this before. Lame. And then you get to the end of the movie and you're like, I have not seen this before. That was real weird. Like, so it really won me over in that regard. Like Adam says, if you really stop and think about it, you find a lot of holes to poke in it. I will say that easily 60% of this movie is people monologuing at James Badgedale, like just word vomiting different philosophies at him. Real world philosophies are not like made up for the movie or anything. They all exist. But you're getting kind of like bastardized versions of real world philosophies, just like word vomited up in like huge monologues. And then every scene ends with James Badgedale just being like, I don't know what you're talking about, and leaving. So it's like, it's really funny in that regard. Like I want to watch a lot more movies that's people like pretentious monologuing at a dude who then goes, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, and just like saunters off to fall in a ditch or whatever this character did. But I also think like this movie's cool because you kind of see like we watch this guy like fall apart, and we watch his world fall apart, and like there is a sort of weird catharsis at the end to know that like nothing matters. And in the case of this movie, like nothing matters for him kind of becomes like a prison. But there's also, speaking from my own personal worldview, like you can reach a point where nothing matters, and that's like an incredibly freeing thought, and you actually feel like lighter and happier in your life when you stop to think about it. And I think this movie really shows us like the deconstruction of this man, and like the realization that nothing matters and how hard that hits. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. I think it's really beautifully shot. I think it's a bit scatterbrained. I think the point doesn't always land. And like I said, there's a lot of long monologues that don't really make sense. So like I'm not gonna act like this is a perfect movie. Definitely has its faults, but I think it's really creepy. It's really atmospheric, and I've never seen anything quite like it before. So I quite liked it. And with that, I'll pass it back to Lance and be done speaking for a moment.
All right. So yes, overall of the movie, not my favorite. Pretty middle of the road for me personally. But there are some really great things about the movie. I'm not here to just totally crap on it. I do have to say it was very unique. I can't say that I've seen a movie like that or a storyline like that. Um, Obviously, yes, I really loved, especially in that first 20 minutes, like how it was shot, the location, and everything was amazing. Um, but I feel like I feel like my overall kind of takeaway from it is it was kind of a letdown for me personally. I watched those. I think my favorite part was the first 20 minutes, and then gradually my interest in the movie kind of waned for me personally. Um, yeah, the ending, didn't really like it. I thought it was to the point of if nothing really matters, why should I care about the story of this character if nothing really matters? Was kind of my takeaway personally. But I mean, kudos on like trying to do something new. I'm not like trying to just always slap that down, like just keep to the norms. But I felt like kind of the delivery and the end point and the end product of some of those ideas I would have liked to have seen done differently or have a different outcome. But yeah, I would say wasn't great, wasn't terrible, just kind of a middle of the road movie for me.
Honestly, I think you said the most devastating thing you could have said, which is you basically went like, "Hey, good try." Like, if the filmmaker who made this movie ever watches this podcast, that will just like we said a lot of nice things about the movie, all three of us. He'll forget all of that and just focus on like, this was a good attempt.
It was a good try, as I sit in my lofty tower. I'm telling you how to make a movie, sir.
You guys don't realize this because he does have wallpaper over it, but the wall behind Lanson, solid gold.
Dude, none from my friends.
What? Is the audience your friends in this context?
Of course. I feel like that's kind of anyway, this is a little bit of a tangent, but kind of the beauty of podcasting is you feel like you're a friend of the speakers, or at least you're somebody in the room. So I don't know. I feel friendly feelings towards everybody at home.
I mean, that's nice of you. I am aware that people who listen to this podcast probably feel like they're our friends. Yeah. You're not. God, get away from me. I need all of you to leave me alone.
But please keep listening to the podcast.
Hey, I appreciate you being an audience member, but also like, stop coming to my nephew's birthday parties. God, it needs to stop.
I'm sorry, I got to stop putting that online of where your nephew's house is. I really should have seen that coming.
Lanson tweeting out, fans of the show have a chance to meet Luke Haueter at his nephew's pool party.
I mean, they're so insatiable. I have to throw somebody to the wolves of like, here's some fresh meat. Leave me alone.
And in fairness, we can't throw Adam to the wolves. He wouldn't survive. Like, how many stalkers have you had at this point, Adam?
More than the population of Salt Lake City.
Dang, dude. And how many of those do the podcast with you? You don't have
just two, I think.
Just two?
At least two. Yeah, at least.
Two. Maybe three.
Yeah, we have had guests. Good to
We've had a couple guests.
Yeah, that is true.
Oh man. But getting back into the podcast a little bit. So now that we've kind of given just our general sort of opinions about the movie, let's actually start getting into the meat and potatoes of what our podcast is about, which is survival. And so when we talk about surviving a movie, it's important to talk about, especially in a horror movie, it's important to talk about the antagonist. So why don't we just kind of open it up for discussion to talk about the empty man? I almost called him the bye-bye man because
that's the other movie I was thinking of when I was like, yeah.
Okay, because I straight up, when I went to look up this movie at HBO Max, I put in the bye-bye man and nothing came up, and I'm like, what the heck, man?
Wasn't it all this?
But no,
yeah, when I was talking about like stereotypical movies about teenage protagonists that suck, I was thinking specifically of Slender Man and the Bye-Bye Man, but I couldn't remember Bye-Bye Man.
Yeah. Anyway, me just being a goof. But yeah, let's talk about the empty man. Some strengths, some weaknesses, just kind of what we think of the antagonist.
The interesting thing about this movie, I think we'll we'll break this down further, but kind of taking a step back, this movie's a little bit like when we try to do Donnie Darko, where the end was kind of inevitable. Like the character starts and is going toward a goal that's pretty much set for him. And I think as far as the strength of an antagonist go, they created this guy to become a certain thing. And I don't know, and that's kind of the cult, because you have the cult and then you have the demon guy, and the demon guy doesn't do a whole lot. It's kind of the cult setting it up for the demon guy to come in. So I don't know. It's a little tough to break down, but what I will say as a strength is they have a hold on this guy. And I mean, it's tough to get away because he was literally created for this one purpose and has like 3 days before it's going to be finally set in. So that's a small window of escape there. So I think that's a strength that the cult people have.
Yeah, for sure.
It's sort of an interesting conversation too, because there are like multiple antagonists in this. Because obviously there's the empty man himself. And then there's also oh god, what was her Coconut Head? What was her name?
Oh man,
yeah,
Coconut Head.
the girl who looks like she's getting a liberal arts degree, derogatory. Just to be clear, there's getting a liberal arts degree, cool, and then there's getting a liberal arts degree, derogatory. She is very much the latter.
Yeah.
Like in a way, you could view her as like one of the ultimate antagonists of the movie as well, because like she's kind of the one pulling the strings, and like this is where it's going to get interesting, because we'll discuss like different possibilities of the movie and different things, and like whether or not the ending is inevitable, you know. But I do think like there's an interpretation of this movie that I think. I've never discussed this with anybody. This is just something I've thought about, but like, you know, why would the cultists like tell the truth? You know what I mean? Like they have no motivation to tell the truth. Like,
right.
It's pretty far-fetched. Like, first of all, this movie expects us to believe, hey, there's a guy from another dimension, the empty man, and he like uses people as like a radio, and he talks to his followers. We're supposed to believe that, but then the movie also expects us to believe, like, you know, a bunch of dopes with shaved heads sat in a basement for like 50 years thinking real hard about James Badge Dale, and then he just like appeared. And like, there's also the thing of like, we know that they've tried this 13 times before and it's never worked. So the idea of it working now feels a little convenient. So I kind of like, part of me wonders if whatever I know the actor's name is James Badgedale. His name in the movie also happens to be James. Part of me wonders if he's actually like a real dude and everything that happened to him is real, but the cult used their weird like think about it and like make it real philosophy to like from a distance brainwash him and convince him that his life didn't really happen. You know what I mean? Because like obviously what she says directly is, oh, we made you up, you're completely our creation, you're our Tulpa. That's what it was. I remember that because it's obnoxiously close to Tulsa. But they're like, you're our Tulpa, we completely made you up. And I'm like, I don't know, that's kind of a big swing. And also they have no reason to be telling the truth. You know what I mean? Like, what's a bigger swing, that you molded a guy into being your antenna, like a real living person, or that you made a guy up from scratch? You know, like they use their weird ambiguous mind powers to make the mom forget about James so that when he calls her, she's like, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, because he had like a whole life. He was walking around, and I have a lot of trouble believing that they like, I don't know. I'm not entirely sold on like his entire life was like a construction, because I don't believe that Coconut Head is that good of a writer. You know, I don't think she's like, a J.K. Rowling over here, you know.
Yeah.
Although she might be a TERF as well, hard to say. She kind of has that vibe.
Yeah.
But so part of me wonders if that's really what's going on in this movie. They're just like using their weird cult focus energy thing to actually like erase this man's life and empty him out for the empty man. So like this
Right.
movie's really about him being emptied out, and he's sort of metaphorically the empty man in that they are like scooping out his emotional innards to make room for the entity known as the empty man.
Yeah.
I think kind of a weakness I could see is the beginning 20 minutes. It seems, now this could have all been controlled by the cult people, right? But it seems a complete coincidence that these hikers came, this lady walked this ridge, or not the lady, the guy, and then he fell through this pit, and then he got possessed, and then he's on life support or whatever, and now they need to bring him to someone else. So that to me seems pretty coincidental, and I feel like some random cave, which isn't too far off the trail, I guess, in Bhutan, is kind of the source of all this grief. So them just sitting or that entity sitting there in this skeleton just waiting for prey to come so he can claim an empty man is, I feel like, is not the greatest strategy I've ever heard in my life.
I definitely like the entity of the empty man has influence, right? Because at the very end, we see the guy walk out, and there's a bunch of nurses and doctors who theoretically are just like normal nurses and doctors, except they've been working near the antenna guy for years and years. And so they've slowly had like that influence like take him over. So when he walks out at the end, they all like bow down to him because it's just like years of influence working up. So there's clearly like influence there, and clearly like the guy, you know, he kind of hears something and like wanders off. So like, and like that temple existed because like this was a creature who was worshipped until he was forgotten. And he just opportunistically was like, aha, people, time for another follower or antenna. But to your point, like the cult vaguely says that they have like plans and that they can't wait for another antenna to exist, because apparently there's like 500 years of time between each antenna throughout history, which is like huge. What an inconvenience, first of all. Like,
Right.
What a bummer. Imagine if like, I mean, I guess most religions are kind of built on this idea, but imagine if like every religion was like, there's going to be a prophet in 500 years. Just like hang tight.
Still waiting.
The stuff we have will have to work for a while until we have somebody new pop in and kind of teach us some new stuff.
Right.
That would be like if our country just like only has a president every 500 years. They're like, hold tight, nothing's gonna change because we don't have that like third guy. We don't have that third executive. We don't have that third branch of government active. So just wait 500 years and then we'll tap somebody in. I went down a rabbit hole with that one. Sorry, but like to your point, like if their whole thing is like, you know, either we do this now or it's 500 years before there's another antenna, that could go terribly wrong. Like this guy is like full drinking and driving by the last act of the movie. What if he just like gets in a car accident? Like
exactly, yeah.
You're shit out of luck. Guess there's no antenna for the next 500 years. Because that guy in the hospital bed ain't gonna make it.
He's a goner.
He ain't gonna make another week.
And I almost thought like after Coconut Head gives him that whole speech, I almost thought like he was just going to pull out his gun and shoot himself right there and foil the whole plot and be like, well, you don't get me, you know, which would be like, crap, dudes. What if he killed himself? We should have thought of that.
Should have not told them our
pushing
plan.
A man to a brink of fear and like guilt and depression could end in suicide. Fuck, we didn't think this through. God damn it.
It wasn't in the...
We got to go back to our creepy cabin in the woods and think about another guy, I guess. Whatever it is the cult does, it's really ambiguous.
Dude, I know. I was just thinking about that. We got to go back to the summer camp and watch some more VHSs to figure this whole situation out.
Run in a circle some more. Get all dizzy.
Build the fire.
By the
with
way,
our
definitely my
minds.
favorite part of this movie is like at the summer camp when he like takes a step back and they take a step towards him, and then he takes a step forward and they take a step back, and he just goes, "Yeah, no," and runs away.
Yes, I know.
Perfection. Dude. I loved that.
Hilarious.
Here's I don't know if this is a strength or weakness. It's a characteristic.
Yep.
I think something that I know for sure wasn't a construct or wasn't a induced memory. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but is the bottle blowing being necessary for the conjuration of the evil guy? Because it's in the first 20 minutes part where he has to blow the little thing in order for bad stuff to happen, and then in their little cult meeting they're blowing it for the dude to walk out and him to be in the same place at the same time. So this creature does, similar to like, you know, any religious deity has certain things that you know, I don't know, arbitrarily build his energy or is a calling card, is the bat signal for him. I'm not quite sure. And the more I talk, I feel like it's kind of a weird thing for a religious entity to be bound by something like that. Like, hey, I'm gonna come, but I gotta get some kids to blow in a bottle first, and then I'll wreck them, and then I'll come and get them. And I can see it both sides. Like I've researched a lot on cults and know that those kind of things in real life are a way to indoctrinate the cult members. If you have like arbitrary like symbols or, you know, things you do in a physical manner that make you do. But I feel like for this movie, it's kind of weird that blowing into a bottle, that he was bound by that, and that had to happen for he did his juju, which is kind of a small thing, but just something I thought of.
You know, I'm glad you finally referenced all of your cult research, because there was a time in the 90s where you were just floating around from cult to cult going undercover, isn't that right?
That's correct. In the 90s, when I was from age 1 to age 3, it was my only existence in the 90s, and I was really into doing, you know, work for the undercover cops in those cults. You're right. Sting operations, the works.
You were hanging out with the Heaven's Gate cult for like a while there, but you jumped out before, like, you know, the mass exodus is probably the most insensitive way I could refer to that event.
You know, true fact. My birthday was the day they all filmed themselves, when it was like a couple days before they all killed themselves. So March 19th was a big date for the Heaven's Gate cult, and that's what I was born into when I came to this world. So maybe that's pretty cool.
That was the ushering in of when they needed to do it. They're like, there shall be a male child born.
I was part of the prophecy.
He shall be known as Bone.
Just imagining like Adam as a baby, like being passed around the Heaven's Gate cult. He has like a umbilical cord camera recording secret footage for the FBI. Are you wearing a wire? Would you consider an umbilical cord a wire?
You know what, man?
He's clean.
That was insensitive of me. Yeah, he's clean. That's like part of you, man. That's all good. Oh man, that's funny.
It's also terrible. Yeah, no, I like as far as like the empty man himself, very ambiguous, and definitely seems to be kind of inescapable. If we're to assume what happens to the teenagers at the beginning of the movie is like actually happens in some way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because again, it's hard to say what actually happens and what is like an invention and a false reality. But if we're to assume all of that happens, then there's sort of the ambiguous thing of like, if the teenagers follow through with this weird little thought experiment, then they end up killing themselves. So like, he has influence, he has power. There's that crazy scene of the girl like stabbing herself in the sauna.
Yeah.
And then of course find the rest of the kids like having hanged.
Yeah, either one.
We find them hung like horses, and
wow.
No,
What movie did you
that's
watch?
that's the wrong terminology. We found
the
them.
empty man. Oh wow!
No, I'm sorry. I'm getting my terminology mixed up. We find them and they all have giant dicks.
Yeah, you're right. That's
And
what was weighing them down.
Yeah, the worst case of blue balls you've ever seen. It's little known fact about the empty man. Like, the one regard in which he is not empty is he has like the fullest and bluest of balls.
Just those things are glowing. You know his clothes when you see a blue glow. Just like
they clack together like marbles. You can hear them. It's
You think those are his footsteps?
No. You blow into the bottle and he's like, man, I wish that was me. What are you freaking doing over there?
He's from a dimension where jerking off doesn't exist, so.
First you'll hear him, then you'll see him, then you'll feel him. Hopefully.
Telling me these cult members have spent like 28 years trying to think up a dude for me to inhabit, and they couldn't have spent just a few minutes every day thinking real hard about jerking me off.
We couldn't put that into the freaking itinerary for the training schedule.
Couldn't have had Stephen Root lead a friggin' prayer circle about that.
Stephen Root, man.
I love Stephen Root, by the way.
Love that guy.
Such a great scene. I was so happy.
I know.
I think to your point, Luke, it's pretty tough to really put words for what the motivation of the empty man is. It's like, I think he's kind of just an ambiguous god-like deity. He wants people to follow him and worship him, but yeah, it doesn't seem like, unless I'm missing something, that there's any hint or plans for any takeover of the world or any doomsday stuff. It just seems like his whole motivation in this movie is like, I need a guy. Give me a guy. And that's kind of it. So I'm not quite sure what the end game is for him as a motivating factor, but I guess that's all that matters for survivability is that he wants a host. So
yeah. And I mean, like, clearly, like, there's something else going on, because like the Pontifex Institute is like a worldwide organization with like Scientology levels of money and influence. And like there are the scenes where he goes through like huge record rooms filled with like thousands of documents, but it focuses in on just like these 14 experiments where they're trying to summon a tulpa. So like we see just like a sliver of what the Pontifex Society is up to. And like Coconut Head clearly says at the end, like, we have big plans and we need an antenna in place for these plans to go forward. So like there's something else going on. He like James Badgedale, his whole purpose in this movie is to walk from scene to scene and be totally bewildered by everything that's happening. So he only sees like a very, very small sliver of their organization and is confused by all of it. And that's what best serves the story. Like I said, there's so much stuff happening in this movie. Like, essentially, this movie has two beginnings, neither of which matter by the end of the movie, which is truly wild.
Yeah.
So, like, it's all very ambiguous, but they must have, like, something going on. But it's a whole big wrench in the works just if, you know, like, they don't get their metaphorical empty man for the empty man to, like, black vomit his way in.
I know, right?
By the way, viewers out there, that is how he enters. He enters through a black sludge that must be inserted into the mouth, evidently.
Yeah, there are worse ways for a ghost to, you know, latch onto a host.
I'm having trouble thinking of any.
Yeah,
but,
I was about to say, you know, Adam, I don't have your experience, but I would say that's pretty bad. That's probably
there's this movie called It Follows, and I think I'd rather the black sludge in some of those.
Well, I mean, hey, you gotta have a little bit of fun, you know what I mean? You know?
I don't know. It doesn't look like any fun to me.
I mean, that creature may literally split you in half, but like,
hopefully,
there's fun to be to be had along the way. You know,
I'm just saying, an oil spill versus, you know, some good times is all I'm saying.
I feel like we're like segueing into a game we play on this podcast all the time, which is a classic game of Would You Rather. And the question is, would you rather, like, I feel like there's a host of options. When I think about like horror movies deaths that like freak me out the most and sound the most unpleasant, like the one that came to mind for me instead of It Follows was actually the chest burster from Alien. That whole thing is really scary to me, getting face hugged and then chest bursted.
Yep.
So like let's lay it out. Like if the three options are you get chest bursted, you get the black sludge vomit, or you get pardon my French, you get banged to death by a mysterious entity that can look like anyone. So there's a really uncomfortable possibility that it will look like somebody that you do not want to be having sex with. Would you rather of those three options? Boom, boom, boom. Well, like break it down, guys. What do you think?
I'm going with It Follows, and I'm using the power of my mind to manifest who I want to come,
To manifest it into
sex.
James Badge Dale. Yeah.
Hey man, I'll take him.
I'm going with the black sludge, man. I don't want to get aliened, and I don't want to get fucked to death. I want to get a little bit of throw up in my mouth, but you know what? That's gonna.
That's not a little. There's not a little bit. Like it's an entire being. Like shoots.
Literally,
right
like the entire being dissolves into this black sludge and goes into his mouth.
It's pretty standard though. Like it happens in The Conjuring. It happens in this movie. It's a demonic possession.
It's pretty standard. Adam, it's pretty Can you imagine a world in which you throw up so hard that your entire body like evaporates into the throw up? Can you imagine that? And tell me that that is standard in any way?
Well,
Adam?
I'm not a demon. I would be the receiver. I have to imagine it happening to me, which I can.
Okay.
Because, you know, I feel like it'd be the better option. I know it's not. What would you choose, Luke? What's your choice? Sex
demon. It's like not even close.
No, that's horrible.
Adam. Okay. Okay, nerd.
You're talking to a guy who discovered the term succubus in high school and had a really awkward sexual awakening.
You don't die by the black sludge doesn't kill you in either case, whether it's The Conjuring or this ghost. I mean, it's taking over you. You are the host, and that's not a good life, but you're not dying.
But are you really alive, Adam?
I guess that's a philosophical.
In your final moments of the sex demon, at least you're alive. At least you're yourself.
If the wind upon your skin can't even be felt by you, are you truly alive?
You know, dude, everything is just a construct. Nothing really matters. If you think of you gotta manifest this stuff. Anyway, that's just the vibe I got.
Adam, first of all, we need to get you a bowl cut, my dude. Second of all, we need to teach you about the power of manifestation. You think I became the worldwide boogie board champion by not manifesting that destiny for myself?
Dude.
I'm the worldwide boogie board champion because I set up the championship every year, declare myself the winner, and don't invite anybody else.
He's the boogeyman.
I've only been disqualified 2 years.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I almost drowned a couple of years in a row, and I had to disqualify myself. Didn't feel right to give myself the crown after that.
Man of integrity. I appreciate
it. A man of principle, even under fire or underwater in this case. That's awesome.
There was also fire. All the wildfires in California, I do start those just on my way through.
Luke, I almost was a fan of you, and then you had to go and say a thing like that.
Well, no, it's for like food, though.
Huh? Okay, Luke. I disagree with your actions, but I will not have. I have no further questions. All right. Anyway,
no, I can't let the sex demon follow me. I gotta set fires behind me.
Always. What if you live under sea, like under the water?
How would it get to you there? Come on, man.
Yeah, bro. If it can't go through fire, it can't go through water. Bada bing, bada boom. So, yeah.
I would survive It Follows. I'm gonna give myself final girl status.
Nice.
That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and you hit the nail on the head. All right. So
when you said you wanted a discussion, Adam, is this anywhere close to what you were hoping for?
It's more than I was hoping for.
Yes. Good. Very good. All right. So we've talked a little bit about the antagonists, the opposing forces that be in this movie. Is there anything else we'd like to add or any other thoughts?
His cloak looks really inconvenient, and he should wear more comfortable clothes that he can like run around in and stuff.
Wear some shorts or something.
I will say just one more thing to support the interpretation of events, that he is a real dude who they are like brainwashing into like thinking he's a tulpa. Like, just throwing it out there, you know, old Coconut Head is in charge of writing this guy's entire life. Why did she make it integral to his backstory that he banged her mom?
Yeah, that was very interesting, and especially like the shots they have. I had to laugh when he's banging the mom, but then like his wife and kid are dying. I'm like, well, at least he got something out of the experience. And like he's kissing the lady through her lace. I'm like, dude, nobody does that. I don't know. Maybe you do, but that just seems that seems like a very specific memory to really be like, okay, then he's gonna do this. I'm really gonna think about it hard.
That's another thing.
To manifest that for hours.
Yeah, if someone was gonna manifest that for hours, that means friggin' Will Byers from Stranger Things was sitting in a chair, blowing on a bottle, thinking hard about a fictional man banging her mom.
Maybe that was something for her. I don't know.
Look, I don't mean to be a weirdo, but like as a writer, if I were to write a fictional story but use like myself as a character and my mom as a character, it would not be like a pivotal part of the main character's story that he would have sex with my mom.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, but I feel like that adds to my interpretation of events, that like this is a real guy and they're using their like manifestation technique to empty him out, as opposed to he is like purely created from their thoughts or whatever, because there's a lot going on here, and at the end of the day it's like, why is that an important part of his backstory? And like specifically, why does that happen on the same day that your dad dies? Like, why write that in? Like, this girl's writing some real creepy smut in her off time. Like,
yeah, dude.
When she's on the clock at the Pontifex Society, she's really focused in on making James Lasombra. But when she's at home, she's writing real weird Alvin and the Chipmunks fan fiction. Alvin and the Chipmunks meet the Bride of Frankenstein. Oh, sorry, that's Adam's draft. I gotta close that out. I gotta
close that.
Still waiting for that feedback, buddy.
It's real first draft of Monster Mash vibes.
Good. Very good.
It's a huge compliment, yeah.
Indeed. All right. So that kind of gives us more. So this kind of segueing into our next topic. Also, when we're talking about survival, we like to talk about the characters, some of their choices, whether they were good, whether they were bad, what we would do differently. So maybe let's kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about the characters themselves, maybe choices that they made, things they could have done better. Let's go ahead.
The character, again, this is tough because it's hard to know what's real, but just assuming, at least for the sake of this specific discussion, that everything's real and that he is a real dude. He definitely, I feel like does a great job just taking the reins on the investigation, where he's like, you know what? I used to be a cop. Cops aren't doing shit. I'm going to do shit. It is a little weird that he goes and tracks down high school age kids and gives them cigarettes. I don't know how awesome that is, but he really goes for it, and he really does some investigation that's pretty impressive, and he stumbles on stuff sometimes a little accidentally, but I don't know. He really goes for it, and I think that's cool.
And my favorite part of this movie is when he tracks down a high school student, maces him, and then takes him out under a bridge pass and just beats the shit out of him.
Yeah,
that was a little questionable as well.
All while drinking and driving. That's just great police work. What can I say?
What can I say? He's the tulpa, man. He's the antenna.
He's the type of policeman. Like, he's a policeman of the same caliber as Bill Hader and Seth Rogen and Superbad.
Yeah, pretty much, dude. Oh man.
No, I mean, if we're taking the ball and running with it, and like this is a real guy, who's being tricked into thinking he's a tulpa, then there's like a lot of things that he should do different, right? Like, one, like, I feel like this is big. It's so stupid when we get to the scene of him on the bridge and he's like, let me blow on a bottle. Like, no.
Yeah, I thought that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no reason for this to happen. Two, like I said, we just watch him like go totally unhinged. He goes off his medication. He puts his wedding ring back on to just really put another layer of guilt on himself. Even like the first thing he does in the movie, going to a restaurant by himself and getting a free birthday dinner, is like the saddest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, just do anything else, man. Get help. Like, I don't, like, I feel like there's a lot of stuff where he's just like really opening himself up to this whole thing, where he's like,
right,
he's going off his meds, he's drinking and driving, beating the crap out of teenagers. Like, he's letting himself get unhinged. And there's even like a conversation with the cop where the cop's like, I think it's best if you just like leave this alone. And like, yeah, he should. Like, not to mention, like, the person you're tracking down is the daughter of a woman that you kind of hate right now because you cheated on your wife with her, and because of your infidelity, your wife and son are now dead. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't be keen to do that woman any favors. Like, it's a complicated situation, and I'm sure like there's still a lot of positive emotions there, and he probably doesn't like hate her or anything. But at the same time, just like where I'd be emotionally, I don't think I'd be in a place where I'm like, let me go really out of my way to find your daughter who definitely ran away to join a cult. Like,
yeah, right.
And also in terms of detective work, really obvious from step one that the daughter went to join a cult.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what your plan is from there. Like, I'm not trying to be a dick or anything, but a person has to leave a cult willingly. Otherwise, like, what are you doing? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can help, you can maybe get them in a hospital, get them deprogrammed, but like, at the end of the day, if you find her and you like kidnap her from the cult, you've still like kidnapped her. And that's like, I don't know. There's a lot of different layers to that. So there comes a point in his investigation where I'm like, dude, what are you even trying to accomplish at this point?
Right. Yeah. I'm going to say something. Paul, look where you're going next time, bro, and don't fall down a hole.
Watch your feet, man.
I know you got like the magic dude on the recorder, but at the same time, man.
That's another thing. My favorite part of this movie is when she finds him clutching a bone flute and she's like, let me blow on this. No. As soon as I find a bone flute, I'm throwing that into the abyss. I never want to see it again.
Oh, crap. The only bone flute to summon me got thrown back to the pit from whence I came. Jeez. Should have planned better.
Again.
Foiled once again.
My antenna's getting help. I couldn't bite into the brain meat of his girlfriend. She's not going to go stabby on his best friends. My whole plan is ruined. Guess I got to sit here for another 500 years and hope the next antenna just like falls in.
Also, this is something I'm thinking about too. If everybody in his party, they got killed or killed themselves, how did he get back to the United States? Like, if he's just on the face of a mountain, like, how long did he have to wait before people were like, oh, hey, those random tourists that came through Bhutan, maybe we should look for them. So I'm thinking, like, if I'm the empty man, maybe that's not such a great idea to just have that dude in a comatose state on the face of a mountain after you killed all his friends, if you want him to be the antenna.
Just imagining like the empty man going to a local library, booking an airplane ticket back to the United States. What is your name? The Empty Man. Like, just,
far out, dude.
Just like the monotony of like, he has to get a passport. He has to apply for a visa.
Sir, please don't smile for the picture.
don't frown either. Well, now I don't know how to. I can't make a neutral face now. I can't make it. I'm overthinking it.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, even just the comedy of like, yeah, just imagining like, what happens if, because Paul's the guy that gets possessed, and then there's the other guy. Greg. What if that guy had just like a pure like fit of passion, just hucked Paul off the cliff and was like, "We're leaving him," like
dead weight.
I don't know. There's just like a lot of things that need to go right.
Right.
I did read somewhere. I did a little bit of reading online today. That apparently they began summoning the empty man early on in that scene. So when they're hiking in Bhutan and they come across like the ritual bells and they actually stop and ring them, I read somewhere online that the director said that was like the first step in the ritual. So they began summoning him by ringing those bells because those bells were like a remnant of the temple to the empty man.
Interesting.
So interesting to point out that like maybe if they don't touch like the ancient and sacred bells, the empty man never even wakes up. Like he oversleeps, and when he does wake up, he's like, "Fuck, there were people here, and one of them could have been my antenna. Damn it! Oh man. Guess I have to wait for a tulpa."
Hopefully those guys back at corporate are really doing me a favor and thinking that dude up and giving him a sexy backstory.
Hopefully the boys in R&D are really cooking up a fancy tulpa to appear naked in a chair.
Yes, please. Please. Goodness. Another thing that probably isn't the greatest of decisions made by James is that creepy teddy bear. Don't bring that into your house. Just leave it. Or like
thank you. I'll take this with me.
Especially after he makes that great decision of going like, yeah, no, and runs away. The fact that he's like, the bear from the camp. Let me sleep with it. Like, what?
I mean, be rude not to take a gift.
Like I said, by the end of this movie, that guy's kind of asking for something bad to happen to him. And he does not look physically well. He's gone off his meds. He's day drinking. When he shows up in the hospital room, he looks like unhinged. And that's before she's like, "We made you up. You're fake." Like, But yeah, there's a lot of things that could have happened in that scene that would have been truly fantastic.
Yes.
I will admit, like, the ending is a bit anticlimactic for me as well. Because when he got taken over by the empty man, I was expecting like a Slipknot concert, like I thought he was going to go up to Paul or whatever his name was and rip his head off with his bare hands. And instead he shoots him, and it was like really bloody, but like the shooting was a bit like, oh, you're telling me the empty man needs a gun to do his thing? That's so lame.
I know, right?
So like, I totally get if you feel a little bit disappointed by the end of this movie. The cooler ending is the empty man takes him over and then he just like massacres everybody in the hospital.
Yes.
Including Coconut Head, which frankly, I feel like at that point we deserved,
Yes.
I don't care if Coconut Head's the best part of Weezer. Like if this movie ended with her dying, improvement.
Indeed.
I'm just realizing it's going to be really bad audio because I keep playing with my fidget toy, so you'll just hear a lot of clicking and clacking.
The empty man is close. Jeez. Oh man. Any other thoughts as far as characters go? Anything we want to present?
Kind of, I don't know. I know it's tough to say if the kids' deaths were real, but I think, I don't know. I could see myself. Maybe I'll ask you guys what you guys think, because I take myself back to high school, and I'm a person, especially now, who's not at all superstitious. Even after watching 1,000 horror movies and listening to scary podcasts, I'm a guy who'd be like, I'll play with the Ouija board. I don't care. Nothing's going to happen. I'm fine. I don't believe in that, really. I'll say Bloody Mary in the mirror. I'll blow a bottle. It doesn't matter. But I feel like in high school it was a little different. I feel like I was a little bit more superstitious of that kind of stuff. Do you guys feel like you would have done? I mean, there's also peer pressure involved, but do you feel like you would have hung out with your kids, with your friends on the bridge, and been like, "Yeah, I'm gonna blow a bottle. I don't care," or do you feel like you were a lot more cautious to be like, "Nah, I'm not even screwing around with that"?
I mean, just for me, like I didn't really get invited to those kinds of parties, you know. Like most of the high school parties I went to were like, "Hey guys, let's watch The Princess Bride." Um, I actually very specifically remember a party with Lance and Lappin where we watched The Princess Bride, and partway through they put it on mute, and Lance and I were just like,
Dubbing it.
yeah, like dubbing it, but doing a really bad job.
Yes.
Accidentally invoked. The Princess Bride was a random example, but it accidentally invoked a real memory. Like,
Yes.
you know, the place where we grew up. I one time went to a New Year's Eve party where all evening, all anybody did was sing show tunes. So it was just like stacks and stacks of books of Broadway hits, and people were like picking a song, taking it up to one guy who played the piano all night long. It was insane. And just one person after the other singing like Broadway karaoke essentially. And somehow I feel like that crowd isn't the crowd that's like, "Have you heard of the Empty Man? Let's grab a bottle and go to the bridge. If you're lucky, the bottle's not the only thing I'm going to blow tonight."
Your mind.
I'm gonna blow your mind. So I don't know, like whether or not this situation would even come up for me in high school. I doubt it. Second of all, I feel like I was always pretty good about like peer pressure. Like if I was in a situation where I'm like, I'm not into this, I'm out. I was usually pretty good about that. And I think I was superstitious enough in high school that I wasn't the type of guy that like on a dare be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna summon a crazy demon to stalk me by blowing on this bottle." Nah. Adios, Bart.
Fair enough. Yeah, I feel like even to this day, I'm still a decent amount of superstitious, as well as
I wouldn't say I'm superstitious, but I'm definitely a little stitious.
I'm a little stitious for sure. But also, like, I'm not gonna take some nasty old bottle and put it that close to my mouth just to blow in it. Like,
You
no,
saw him
thank
like
you.
wipe it off, and you're like, "That's not gonna do anything."
I'm just like, why are we here, guys? We
That's
could be
not keeping
doing
the
a
herpes
million other
from your
things that
mouth.
are fun. Yeah.
You're telling me right now, Lanson, that if a girl getting a liberal arts degree told you to blow on a bottle, you wouldn't do it?
I would throw her off the bridge for the betterment of the movie.
Okay,
and the world.
hold on, but I need you to think about this.
Okay, go ahead.
I need you to think about this.
All right.
She has the same haircut as a guy from Modest Mouse.
I will play a Modest Mouse song on my phone while I throw her off the bridge, out of respect.
This one's for you.
And they all float on, all right.
You know, I've said a lot of things about girls with liberal arts degrees, but let me also say this. If you have a liberal arts degree, hit me up.
Yeah, why not?
Adam, anything to add? Come on, speak up.
I'm not
Adam,
a girl.
Adam, please have something to say. Dear God, please.
Don't have a liberal arts degree, so I'm not going to hit you up.
Fair enough. All right. So now that we've kind of talked about our characters a bit, let us get to the championship rounds. Let us get to what we like to call final boy and final girl status. Final boy status, you're the one that almost makes it to the end, but not quite. You're the last one to be killed. Final girl status, you gain the title. You make it to the end. You survive the movie. So, Adam, I shall kick it over to you for this movie, The Empty Man. Would you give yourself final boy status or final girl status? And if so, then how?
Great question, Lanton. I think I have to give you my interpretation of the ending of this movie in order to fill in the context. I do believe that this man was created because throughout the movie they talk about some dumb thing about manifestation and repetition creates flesh. So I think he was literally created from their thoughts. And so if I'm the main character and I appear in some bunker somewhere, then I have a bunch of memories of terrible things that have happened to me. I think I am intrinsically and would be intrinsically an optimist. I would say, you know what? Life's not that bad. I love life. Life's great. I'm gonna that girl that I was having an affair with. I'm like, hey, let's move in together. I love you now, and we're a thing now. I'm going to Disneyland, the happiest place on earth. I'm going to therapy. I'm getting rid of my demons. In those 3 days, I'm just upping my happiness level to the max extreme. So the cult comes in, they're like, all right, empty man, we got, number 14 or whatever the fuck. He's a good one. We gave him a really tragic backstory. He's a broken guy. I'm gonna get there and they're gonna be like, we got you. And I'll be like, well, you know what? I'm just happy for the opportunity. The empty man's gonna come up to me and be like, no, this ain't happening. I'm achieving final boy status, but they realize that I'm a failed attempt, and then they will throw me off a bridge. And so I'm not surviving this movie, but I'm not getting infected with the empty man, so I think that's a plus.
There you go.
Boom shakalaka.
Very nice. And Luke, would you give yourself final boy status or final girl status? And if so, then how?
Oh, let me tell you. Baby, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I'm a part of what we'll call a sleeper cell.
Okay.
Except I ain't doing no sleeping. You know what I mean? I'm always making my moves in silence. No, I give myself final boy status and final girl status. I think the one approach that was never fully realized is what happens if I join the cult? And what happens if I'm involved in writing this backstory for the Tulpa? And I just slip in a small little detail that only, maybe I and a few trusted associates know about, which is when I speak specific words, he will obey my command. And when the time comes, he is going to hit, and he is going to hit hard. We're talking full Terminator status. And then when he wakes up, he'll be like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And I'll be like, exactly what you were supposed to do, baby. And then I just send him on his way. I don't know. Look, after a certain point, it's not super important. I just need him to take a vacation at that point to Hawaii or something, somewhere far away, so we can let Mike or whatever the dude was who fell in the cliff at the beginning, whatever his deal is, we just need him to pass away. And then, we have a good 500 years before we have to worry about another Tulpa. And that means I have the rest of my lifetime to bring down the Pontifex Institute. It's a trilogy of movies that I am the star of. It gets real convoluted in the second one because it's directed by John Woo, but then it's wrapped up really nicely in a third installment that I actually end up being my directorial debut. So
nice. I like it.
It's an inside job. The call came from inside the house.
I love Face Off.
Yeah. What about you, Lappin? Final boy status, final girl status? How you doing this?
I am both at the same time, and let me tell you how.
Tell me.
So, a little something about me is that I'm already claimed by a cult that worships one of the 7 kings of hell, a cult from Hereditary. We don't take too kindly about a bunch of backpacking mind readers stepping on our turf, man. You want to talk about a guy that comes from another reality, man? We're not going after grown men. We're going after children, and that's much better. That makes our cult much better. But
it's a huge improvement.
It's huge improvement. So I'm already claimed and possessed by the 7th king of hell, and so I'm cracking necks and cashing checks when it comes to the Pontiac Institution or whatever the crap those losers call themselves. I'm taking Stephen Root by the neck, giving him a big old hug and saying, "Please get out of here. I don't want you to see this." Then he leaves, man. Like he leaves that light behind, and then I absolutely just scorched earth on their entire facility and their way of life. The Candy Man, the bye-bye candy, whatever Candy Pants Man he wants to call himself, shows up, and I absolutely just, I take out my wand, I use Expecto Patronum, and I send him back to the Shadow Realm. That Dementor-looking loser. The world is mine. As the seventh king of hell, I make it into a Garden of Eden for all demons and ghouls, but not the freaking empty man, because he was a loser and tried to horn in on my turf. So, yes, for sacrificing the human race and the world that we live in, I would make Final Girl status for my own diabolical purposes.
Through all of that, I'm just imagining that you perfectly arranged the telephone pole decapitation again, but this time it happens to Coconut Head.
Yeah, just like, I think I see the empty man out the window. Really? Put it on a freaking pike in my throne room and just be like, "That's what you get."
The best part of that is how easy it apparently was. Like, that's a pretty half-assed thing, even just be like, "I think I see the empty man." What?
Really? Why don't you give him a big old kiss since you love him so much?
That is the same energy as being like, "Hey, what's behind you?" And then hiding.
Oh man!
Look at that! It's the empty man. Huh?
Why is he so tall and skinny?
Where? The empty man? I love the empty man.
I'll be like
Splinters, kid. Looks like your call's been disconnected. I'm about to snap your antenna in half. Oh, man. Don't lose your head. Anyway, another 80s action movie catchphrases, We could go on and on. But we will not. But we've done it, guys. We have looked deep into the eyes and the soul of the movie of the Empty Man, and we have talked about it thoroughly. So that is another episode of Final Boy Status. Before we sign off, we'd like to open it up for, a couple plugs. Adam, Luke, what you got going on? What do you want the people at home to know about you?
Adam, why don't you go first?
Yeah. I'd like to plug Luke's Twitter. It's at LUKEHAUETER. You can find funny things. You can see his funny thoughts, and that's my plug.
Nice.
Excellent. For my plug, I'm gonna plug at Indie Adam Bones. That's on Twitch and on TikTok as well. Track him down, see his content. Very funny dude. Has a YouTube channel that I've plugged before, and a little film called Shadowed, which is
gosh damn, you took my plug. I was gonna be like, please stop what you're doing right now. Look up Adam Bone Shadowed. Watch it now. Subscribe and like.
Get it while it's fresh. Get it while it's hot.
Right.
And then I'm picking movie next, yeah. So I'll say that before we pass it on to Lanson for his plugs.
What's the movie?
So I picked a Giallo film last time, arguably the most famous Giallo film, Deep Red. And so I wanted to find a modern film that was very influenced by Giallo for our next pick. And I went with a film that all three of us have seen and talked about a little bit before. I went with Malignant.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, dang it.
Maligma.
I probably would have chosen this next if you did.
Maligdy's nuts. That's what we're checking out next. Yeah, I really wanted to go, in the heyday of Giallo, there was Deep Red, and I wanted to take a look at what modern day Giallo is, because it's going to be, it feels very relevant. I know that Mike Flanagan is working on a Giallo piece right now with Fall of the House of Usher, which I'm really excited about. He said explicitly that it's sort of his homage to Giallo. Malignant was James Wan's homage to that that form. And so we're seeing a bit of a resurgence. So I thought we need to take a look at what a modern giallo film looks like. So that's what we're going to do next week. Check it out. Watch it ahead of time if you'd like to. I think it's on HBO Max. So if you're a person that watches along, that's the movie you got to check out next.
Boom. I like it. As always, my plug will be this podcast, Final Boy Status. We appreciate the support we've gotten so far. But yeah, we have a really good time making it. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. But yeah, wherever you find your podcasts, look us up, Final Boy Status. And with that, I wish everybody at home a good evening, have a good week, and we'll see you next time.